Listen, the $58 billion regenerative medicine industry is hiding something massive from you. As a regenerative specialist, I see the clinical reality every single day, and it's honestly shocking. Your stem cells, they aren't dead. They're just switched off. Let's dive right into this hidden biological mechanism because what we're really looking at here is a biological furnace that can absolutely be reignited. Get this. Stanford researchers prove that even after you hit age 65, your stem cells are sitting right there inside your bone marrow at an astonishing 97% capacity. 97%, but they're lying completely dormant. And while your vital repair crews are basically asleep on the job, your body defaults to a state of degeneration. It prioritizes hoarding visceral fat instead of actually repairing your aging tissue. And man, does this perfectly highlight the massive financial illusion we've all been sold. This industry generates billions, literally billions, every single year on outrageously expensive clinical stem cell injections, and then turns around and sells you completely separate, costly fat loss drugs. Two massive bills for two supposedly different problems. But here is the biological truth. One single, absolutely free metabolic switch controls both cellular regeneration and fat oxidation at the exact same time. So the actual problem is entirely misunderstood. These are not two separate issues. Holding on to stubborn visceral fat and the dormancy of your stem cells are driven by the exact same biological mechanism. Think of it like a dormant biological furnace. When this switch is flipped off, that furnace just stops burning belly fat to fuel your cellular repair crews. The result? You're fatigued, you're prone to injury, and you're struggling to keep the weight off. To really see the stakes here, just look at the clinical evidence. I had a 67-year-old patient who had been fighting stubborn belly fat for 6 long years. He got a simple cut on his hand, and it took 3 full weeks to close up. Why? Because his stem cell activity was practically at rock bottom. But we flipped this precise metabolic switch we're talking about, and within 24 hours, his body mobilized those dormant stem cells. The very next time he got a wound, it healed up in just 5 days. No way around it, that's the power of this mechanism. The 24-hour cellular switch. How do we actually flip this thing? Well, we have to look at highly specific biological pathways that act as your body's master metabolic switch. They literally dictate if you are actively degenerating and storing fat or regenerating and burning fuel. First up is the AMPK pathway. Think of this as the body's master metabolic enzyme. Activating AMPK is exactly like reigniting that dormant biological furnace we just talked about. It forcefully and instantly shifts a mature body away from hoarding fat, pushing your cells straight into a highly efficient fat-burning state. Right alongside AMPK is the NRF2 pathway. Now, this is a protein just waiting inside your cells right now. When you trigger it, it unleashes over 200 protective genes. Clinical studies show that activating this pathway boosts neural stem cell survival by 52%. So you're fortifying these newly awakened repair mechanisms, not just in your body, but specifically up in your brain.
The catalyst, the cold-carb trigger.
All right, this brings us to what might be the most powerful mechanism of all. It's vastly more effective than any standard diet for forcing cellular regeneration. Here's the precise protocol. You cook normal white potatoes or white rice. But then, and this is absolutely mandatory, you have to cool them completely in the fridge for at least 12 hours. Why? Because that physical drop in temperature drastically alters the food's molecular structure into something called retrograded starch. It forms a crystalline structure that your body's digestive enzymes physically cannot break down in the small intestine. Because your small intestine cannot digest this cooled starch, it passes completely intact right into your large intestine, and that is where the magic happens. It feeds very specific, highly beneficial gut bacteria. Those bacteria ferment the starch and produce butyrate. Butyrate is an incredibly potent short-chain fatty acid, and researchers are literally calling it the ultimate stem cell regenerator because it sparks massive systemic cellular renewal. The clinical results of this butyrate production? Staggering. A landmark study out of Stanford University proved that butyrate increased intestinal stem cell regeneration by an incredible 68% in just 48 hours. And if that wasn't enough, this compound actually crosses the blood-brain barrier to actively stimulate new neural growth. It's a real game changer. But remember, this switch does 2 things at once. In a 2023 trial tracking this exact resistant starch protocol, participants actually burned 22% more fat while they were sleeping, plus they saw a massive 33% drop in fasting insulin. Their bodies finally stopped locking away energy and started using that stubborn visceral fat as a primary fuel source. The synergistic regeneration protocol. Okay, so the cold carb trigger is your master key, but you can actually layer specific, natural biological amplifiers right on top of it. This creates a massive compounding effect on both stem cell mobilization and the incineration of visceral fat. Take black seed oil, for example. It contains thymoquinone, which drives a 45% increase in stem cell proliferation when you take it in a fasted state. Then we've got raw broccoli sprouts. These are loaded with sulforaphane, triggering that NRF2 pathway we discussed for a 52% boost in neural cell survival. But here's the catch. You have to eat the sprouts raw, and you've got to chew them really well. Cooking them destroys the myrosinase enzyme, and you need that to unlock the sulforaphane. Next up is the turmeric activation protocol. Now, on its own, your body absorbs almost zero turmeric. It's practically useless. But a landmark study showed that adding just a tiny pinch of black pepper, specifically the compound piperine inside it, spikes your absorption by 2,000%. When you combine high-quality turmeric, black pepper, and a little bit of healthy fat with your largest meal, it boosts stem cell proliferation by 39%. And get this, it actively blocks the creation of new fat cells. Then, we've got a biological trigger that is completely free: cold water exposure. Just 30 seconds of cold water right at the end of your daily shower triggers an explosive 530% surge in the hormone norepinephrine. 530%. And what's so fascinating about this norepinephrine surge is what it actually does to your fat. It activates your brown adipose tissue. See, unlike white fat, which just hoards energy and sits there as stubborn belly fat, brown fat actively burns calories to generate heat. This surge boosts your resting metabolic rate so much that you can burn up to 300 extra calories a day, all while mobilizing mesenchymal stem cells directly into your bloodstream. Now, to absolutely supercharge all of this, you have to implement a strict 16-hour minimum time-restricted fasting protocol. You stop eating at 8 p.m. and fast completely until noon the next day. During that time, you can only consume water, black coffee, or plain tea. And I've got to warn you here, even a single drop of milk or a tiny speck of sweetener in that morning coffee will instantly shatter this metabolic switch. It will halt your autophagy recycling process dead in its tracks. The clinical data behind this fasting window is just undeniable. It disproportionately targets your most dangerous fat. We're talking about a 14% reduction in stubborn visceral fat compared to just a 6% drop in subcutaneous fat. And while you're fasting, your growth hormone levels surge by up to 300%. That provides the exact biological fuel your body needs for massive stem cell production. Reclaiming your biological agency. All right, we've arrived at the high-stakes reality here. You do not need to rely on multi-thousand-dollar clinical therapies to regenerate your body. The power to reignite your dormant biological furnace belongs entirely to you. You empower yourself by combining these tools into one single routine. Just imagine this. You fast for 16 hours, letting your growth hormone peak. Then, you break that fast at exactly noon with the cold carb trigger. By doing that, you're creating peak butyrate production perfectly timed for the exact moment your stem cells are most primed and desperate for regeneration. I want to leave you with a provocative thought. If your body has always possessed this hidden, built-in mechanism to effortlessly burn fat and regenerate cells, why was this $58 billion secret kept hidden from you? The switch is inside you right now, just waiting. The only question left is, what are you going to do with this knowledge tonight? Take control of your biology, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.